Welcome to our mostly unscripted and unedited podcast. I'm Paulette Kidd, nutritionist.
And I'm her sister-in-law and bestie, Sarah Kidd.
We love discussing all things related to health, including mindset, self-care, and nutrition.
Join us as we share coffee, laughs, recipes, and random thoughts tossed in for good measure.
You'll leave each conversation feeling motivated and with actionable strategies that you can use right away to improve your health and help you stop feeling fat, foggy, and fatigued.
See you there.
All right, welcome back. Episode 2. So I'm Paulette Kidd, registered holistic nutritionist. And
I'm Sarah Kidd, sister-in-law and guinea pig.
And guinea pig.
And other stuff that's not as important for this podcast.
Okay.
It'll come up later, maybe.
So what are you drinking today? And in what are you drinking?
Oh, I can't wait to tell you. This is my new favorite thing. So get ready to learn something, everyone. Maybe, or maybe not. But this is a David's tea mug, which this one I acquired used, which is always nice when you don't have to pay full price. Oh, that's a better view of it. Yeah. So I just love that it's plain white and has this texture to it. I often gravitate towards really colorful things, but I'm learning to appreciate the less brilliant color-wise. Why won't this color be better? Anyway, and so inside my cup, more importantly, I don't want to pour it onto my computer, but I've discovered, because I have a really hard time staying hydrated in the winter. In the summer, it's no problem. I love sparkling water. I love the taste of cold water, especially in the summer with lemon, or with my sparkling water, I'll put a drop of lime essential oil, things like that to flavor it. I love that. So I don't typically have too much trouble staying hydrated in the summer. In the winter, though, I want coffee and that's it all day until I want tea. And I don't want to drink water. It's too cold. This is, and I just had this idea the other morning, what can I drink instead of coffee but after my coffee that would be good for me and would hydrate me. So there's lemon, a wedge of lemon and a slice of ginger, fresh ginger, a pretty big slice. I don't know. You can see it floating in there. That's part of it. So I really love ginger in tea. I gravitate towards teas that have a bit of kick to them. And I just love spices. And so I thought this would be sour and gross because it's just hot water and some lemon and some ginger. And I thought, well, it's not going to be very sweet, but I don't want to add any sweetener of any kind to this. And it is delicious and it is sweet. The sweetness of the lemon comes through more strongly to me in hot water or warm water as opposed to cold water. I mean, it's still lemony, refreshing in cold water too, but this is very soothing and cozy. And I feel like the ginger just provides some anti-inflammatory properties. And if you're fighting sicknesses or if you're trying to avoid sicknesses, I'm sure that's helpful too. So that's what I'm having. And it's my new favorite drink.
Wow. So how much of that would you drink in a day in the winter here?
Well, I think I had 3 the other day over the course of the day. The nice thing is that David's tea mugs are super huge, and sometimes it's too much for like a cup of tea because you don't want to be like up through the night. But this is great if you're trying to stay hydrated. It's a good amount of liquid. And 1 slice of each does the trick, and it's really nice. I'm sure you could add more. I haven't tried reusing yet. That'll be my next thing to try. But I wouldn't even mind if the ginger flavor was a little stronger because I just love that kick.
Yeah. So obviously we're doing this podcast by video. The audio is likely going to be available as well. So if you're listening to the audio and you have no idea what that beautiful mug looks like, you really should look at it. So look for the YouTube link so you can watch that. You also need to see my fancy tea. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, and also maybe we could even like include a picture of it.
That's a good idea.
Picture or something, just so that people know what we're talking about if they're just listening more often than not.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So Sarah and I share a love of David's tea. So I have some David's tea here, and it's pumpkin Earl Grey. And I'm using my perfect steeper. Do you have one of these, Sarah?
Ooh, no, I don't.
Okay, so the perfect steeper, so I'll just describe it for those of you who are just watching it. So it's like a clear plastic pitcher, I guess. You put the loose tea right in the main part, and then you add your water, and it has the measurements on there based on how much tea you want. And then you let it steep, and then you just set it right on top of your cup, and it magically filters through and keeps the loose leaf in the pitcher, and then your tea in your cup. So I did this because I wanted to show you my friend's color changing mug that I just got. So I'm a huge Friends fan, love that show. But I wanted to be able to put the hot water in so you could see it. So I'm just gonna put that on and really hope I don't spill.
So is it just doing it on its own?
Yeah. So there's like a little whoops. I guess I had too much water. Okay, but I wanted you to see the full cup. So you can see it changing. You see the turkey.
Yeah. There's
the turkey that Monica put on her head with the sunglasses.
Yep.
So on the back, it says, "You're my lobster," and it's got a picture of the frame that's on the door around the peephole.
Yeah, and I see the duck and the duck and the goose.
Yeah.
Or the chicken.
Chicken, yes. And then it has like different phrases. How you doing? I can't say it like Joey does, but
oh yeah, the duck and the chick, right?
Yes, that's right. What else? There's the couch on there and the fountain. And there's the "Hello, my name is Regina Phalange."
I saw that post where you were like, "Can you guess where I am?" And then you said the next picture is a clue, and it was, "Hi, my name is Regina Phalange." Yes. And I was like, I know that from somewhere. And I was like, that's from Friends, but I had no idea that there was such a thing as a Friends experience that you could go to. So I didn't realize it was an event. So I just was very confused.
You were very confused. Well, I do have a bunch of photos. I was going to do another reel and post that. This whole thing with reels and stories, it's kind of new to me, and I'm relying on my daughter Lily to help me, and Rosie. Rosie's good at it too, but I wanted to post the pictures with the Friends theme song, and I can't find any way to use it. I know there's a way. Rosie she thinks she can solve my problem, but I need to give her my phone to do it, and we haven't had the opportunity yet. But anyways, yeah. And on this side it says pivot. And it's got the coffee, and anyway. Oh, and the
taxi cab.
The taxi that Phoebe would drive, and the sandwich, like Joey always likes the sandwiches. Yes. Yeah. So anyways,
that's so good.
Fun.
I think it's time to rewatch that show. I watched it through several times, and it's time to do it again.
I think so too. It's one of those shows where you're like, sometimes you're laughing and sometimes you're crying, and anywhere in between.
Yeah.
I love those kinds of shows.
Yeah, me too.
So anyways, all right. Okay. So for those of you who are new to the podcast, and that's probably most of you because it's only our second one, but
everyone is new to the podcast, even
everyone is new. Yes, they may have heard the first one, so they know what we're about. But basically, I'm a registered holistic nutritionist. I have an online business where I help women who are over the age of 35 who are feeling fat, foggy, fatigued, and I help them to learn how to eat in a way that supports their metabolism and adopt healthy lifestyle habits that help minimize the stress, help create resiliency. We really work on self-care, taking care of ourselves, helping to balance everything out so that they feel better and they can get back to living their lives.
Yeah.
But again, the strategies will work for most people. It's just that I specialize in working with women because I am one, and that's my experience. And Sarah has been my guinea pig over the last 3 years and has very unique perspective on the whole process. And she'll be sharing in the episodes about what it's like to be a client and what the experience is. So we wanted to talk about in this episode, setting up realistic expectations about what this journey would look like for you. If you are really serious about improving your health so that you can feel better and have more energy and get rid of brain fog and lose some of the excess fat, you need to know that we're playing the long game here. This is a lifelong strategy. We want to help you incorporate easy things that you can do day after day that don't feel overwhelming or feel difficult, so that you can make this a lifestyle that you're going to stick to, and things will change as you go through, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it can sound intimidating to say this is a lifelong change, but But really, the only change that stays, that is a lasting change, is a change that is done over time. And looking at it as a journey and a process rather than something we've got to get to as quickly as possible, it makes it more sustainable. It makes it more realistic for you. And the fact that it is something that's sustainable means it's not a diet. It's not a restrictive thing. It is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It is a lifestyle, and it is beneficial in so many ways. And we wanted to kind of start off with a visual image that I find extremely inspiring. Somebody shared it with me.
Find it now. Oops. Sorry, I'm gonna screen share, but my computer.
No problem.
I have so many windows open right now.
Well, you take your time. There we go.
All right, here it is. Yes, this is one of our favorite images.
Yes. So there's a slogan that goes with that. It's called "The Importance of Small Steps." And this has really been a sort of a visual that has helped me, because I have been the guy on the left pretty much my whole life, where I'm like, yeah, I got to make a change, and it's going to have to be a complete 180-degree change. And I'm going to have to employ maximum strategies and changes to make it successful. And then that's me sweating at the bottom, and I can't even get to the first rung.
Yeah. So just to explain what that looks like, if you're just listening, it's like there's a ladder on the left with a few rungs on it, but there's huge distance between the rungs. So the guy's standing on the bottom trying to reach the first rung, and he can't even reach it because it's too big of a step.
And he's sweating.
And he's sweating. And that's what it's like when you try to make a huge overhaul of all of your the way you eat, the way you live, in order to achieve a goal. And so then the alternative is on the right.
Yeah. So on the right, you have this ladder with a lot of rungs really close together. The first rung is really close to the ground, and the guy, you can barely see him. He's way at the top, and he's like in the sunbeam because he's been so successful, and he's found the light, and maybe that's not sweat. Maybe the guy on the left is crying. I know I've been there, sweating and crying.
Face,
sometimes at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. So just, and just the whole point is that, like, those little small sustainable steps, the things you do every day, are what is going to get you to the top, to your goal, right?
Yeah. I mean, that guy has reached his goal, and he did it by setting reasonable, manageable, achievable, realistic goals. We call those SMART goals. I don't know if listeners are familiar with SMART goals. That's a pretty big kind of buzzword, I think. But this applies in all areas of our lives, doesn't it? Like, you want to make a change, start small, start with one thing at a time, because as you experience success the first time, even if it's small, it builds that confidence that you need, and that feeling of, oh, I can do it. Actually, I did something, and I did it. I didn't think I could do it, but I did it. That gives you fuel and motivation psychologically for the next goal,
Yeah. And so I like that you brought up that word motivation, because that's one of the objections that I get from people when we have a private Facebook group where I have like a couple thousand women in there, and they're obviously searching, they're looking for an answer. They come into the group, but when I ask them, like, what's standing in your way, like, why have you not been able to achieve your goals? Like, I like to know what they're thinking. And a lot of times they will say, well, I'm just not motivated. It's like they're waiting for that time when they feel motivated to actually get started. And I just want to say that it may or may not ever happen, but you absolutely do not need to wait for that. You can get started now. It's all about making a choice, right? You have to make the choice.
Yeah. And something that I've learned is that, sometimes in order to feel something that you want to feel, so let's say motivation, you want the change, you articulate that, this is what I want. I want to have more energy. I really want to be out of this rut that I'm in. I know I've got some unhealthy habits. I want to quit those habits and build in some good habits, but I'm not motivated. There's nothing motivating me. Sometimes you have to act as though you are, even though you're not, and sort of fake it. And that sounds maybe insincere or inauthentic, but actually sometimes you have to put yourself through the motions in order to begin to feel the motivation.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need that tiny success. Oh, I did a 15-minute exercise today. I was successful today. Tomorrow I'm going to drink 1 extra glass of water, setting those really small, achievable goals that build that confidence and get you a few rungs up the ladder, so that when you look down, you're not still on the ground anymore. You've made some distance.
Yeah. And I think to add to that, it's also, it's those little successes, but it's also building that trust in yourself that you decided, okay, I'm going to drink 1 extra cup of water tomorrow. You do it, you follow through. And that's like, it's developing that trust with yourself, because I think a lot of times people say, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And you may start off, doing some of those things, but then you kind of stop because it's too much, right? If you do those little steps, you build that confidence, you build that trust with yourself. It's a lot easier to get to your goal, and you'll get there a lot faster in a more sustainable way. Yeah.
I love what you're saying about trust, because I hadn't thought of that. Actually, I think about self-confidence, like the belief in myself that I can do it, because I've seen some evidence that I've done it. But I love what you're saying about building trust with yourself, because in any relationship, each time someone shows up for you in a way that makes sense, or follows through on what they say, or is consistent about just whatever in the relationship, like that builds trust between two people, whether you're friends or family or in a relationship romantically. And so I think a lot about what we do and what we're here to talk about is that relationship we have with ourselves, because I think a lot of those roadblocks that we have to starting, they come, we have excuses that are up here, but then there are things farther down that are also stopping us.
Yeah.
And building that trust with yourself, that's a really neat idea.
And I think also that, if you get to a point in your life, you want to make a change. Let's just say it's changing the way you're eating. The only thing you have to go on is what has happened in the past. So if you have failed in the past, I don't even like to use that word, but that's what we say. It's what people say. If you failed in the past, then that's the story you're likely telling yourself. Well, what's the point? I'm just going to fail again. Well, then you are just living in the past, right? You can create a new story to get to the future you that you want. We have so much control over how we think about things, and I think we forget that. We give too much of the power away to the past, to those stories, instead of giving the power to our to our current selves and making a change. Just because you failed in the past, that does not mean that that's going to be your path going forward, but you have to make the choice. In our group coaching last night, one of my clients mentioned about how, it was a little bit of a struggle over the holidays, and, going to different places and not having as much control over the food, or being very tempted by the food that in the past she would have eaten, right? And she stopped herself and she said, no, like, I am the driver of this vehicle. Like, so it's not just getting back on the wagon. She was saying it's not just getting back on the wagon, because if you say that, it's just like somebody else is still driving it. So she's like, no, I'm climbing in the driver's seat. I'm the driver now. And I'm going to determine which direction this goes in. I thought that was a really neat way to look at it. And that's essentially what we're talking about, right? Making a choice.
And I think that's so empowering for her and for us. Like, I think what we need to feel that empowerment and that autonomy, I think, when it comes to our choices, because I talked about how I felt out of control for so many years, like just not in control at all. Like there was nothing I could do, no matter how hard I tried. That confidence piece, like kind of believing in yourself, first of all, that maybe starts with, I don't really believe in myself, but I'm making a decision and I'm not motivated, but this is what I want. So I'm going to force myself to start, and I'm going to start anyway, even though I don't feel like it. And then building that trust with yourself. I mean, clearly your client who you're describing, she has gone through some of that work of building that trust with herself and confidence that she knows she's in control and she can just change. Even if she's falling into a habit, she can stop it and change it with that, because she's in the moment and she's present there, right? Mentally, she's present there.
Yes. And so much of it is being aware in that moment and getting out of that pattern of just automatic behaviors, right? Like you see the bag of chips, you automatically stick your hand in because that's what you've always done. You're not thinking about it, right? Whereas she's now at the stage where she can stop and be aware. She may still choose to eat the chips, but she's not doing it mindlessly, right?
Right.
Or out of
a feeling of I can't control myself.
Yes.
Decision.
Yeah. But one thing I wanted to mention before I forget about the control thing is that, we often think about willpower, right? We talk about willpower and so we feel like our willpower is not strong enough. And so we don't have control, right? And there's definitely some emotional eating stuff that goes along with that. But I'm sure you can attest to this, and I certainly have experienced this, that you need to deal with the physical cause of the cravings first, right?
That was the biggest piece for me. The biggest eye-opening, awakening moment for me.
Right. And because that's very disempowering to think that you don't have any control over it, like your cravings are taking over your brain. But when you learn that a huge reason why you're having cravings, why most people are having cravings, is because they have a blood sugar imbalance. And you might tell me, oh, my blood sugar is normal. Doctor says everything's fine. Just don't worry about that right now. I want you to try and take steps to balance the blood sugar yourself. Imagine that it's out of balance, just because you have these intense cravings. Take steps to fix that, and then you'll see. Because the blood work won't show it till later. That's a whole other podcast we'll do. But yeah, so getting your blood sugar balanced and low and steady can really reduce those cravings. Then you don't have that hormonal reason for the cravings. Then you can deal with that emotional stuff much more easily, right?
Well, you're just simply not fighting against yourself, right? We think it's in our mind and it's a head game, but when our body is actually also feeding our brain information, it's more than just a head game and a mental component. Like you can want it so badly and then be fighting these uncontrollable seeming urges, and I can relate to that, lifting off the veil of I can or I can't. As a teacher, we talk about growth mindset and this idea that your learning isn't fixed. You're not one of the smart kids or one of the not smart kids, or able to do math or not able to do math. There's none of that. It's figuring out what kind of learner are you? What are your strengths? What areas do we need to work on? And that's empowering for students. And I've seen students change completely in their outlook of themselves because they've realized, like, it's not me and some inherent failure in me. It's about understanding what works for me and having the right people there to guide me and to help me and to show me, what I'm capable of doing. And for me to have the opportunities to work within that space of what works for me. So I feel like that it's the same for us, isn't it?
Yeah. And so to go along with this, we often talk in our group coaching about the language that we use around ourselves, our personality, our ability to make changes, what it means to eat healthy, that kind of thing is so important. And so I use this example all the time, but a lot of women will say, well, I'm a stress eater or I'm an emotional eater. And when you say that, it's basically you're giving instructions to your brain to prove that you are in fact an emotional eater or a stress eater. And again, it's very disempowering. It's taking the power out of your own personal choice, right? It's like you're identifying as your problem instead of saying, okay, in the past, or I have a tendency to eat when I'm stressed. I have a tendency to eat when I'm sad, lonely, whatever. But saying it that way, it's not, you're not identifying as a person who is a stress eater, right? It's just a behavior that you have done in the past, and that can really change your mindset about your ability in the future to make different choices, right?
Yeah. And is that going to be kind of more what we talk about in our next podcast, or? Yeah.
So just like I think the initial thing that has to happen is people need to become aware of these things that they're saying to themselves or out loud or whatever. So if we were to give any homework from this podcast, that would be it, is to just be aware of it. You don't even have to think anything differently right now, but just catch yourself saying those things, thinking those things. And especially if you are a parent or somebody who has young people watching you, like they're noticing those things too. They're developing their own relationship with food based on how you do it. So that might be another motivation for you to just change how you're talking about those things, because kids pick up on it. Or saying that like there are certain foods that are good and certain foods that are bad, or I was bad today, I ate a chocolate bar, like let's neutralize the language, right? Even if you don't want to make it more positive, let's neutralize it and take out there's nothing ethical about food. Like it just is, right? So yeah.
And I think we want to provide some concrete, simple resources for our listeners too, who can come out of the podcast with something they can sort of start right away. And I love that homework. Just becoming aware of what your thoughts are, or what the things are that you say out loud in relation to yourself or your food or your relationships to people or things. But I wonder if we can provide like just a simple template for something where they can write out some of those things, because we sort of see this first step as being to establish what is your motivation. Like you may say, I'm not motivated, or I want this, but I don't know where to start. Like maybe you could flesh that out a bit better than I can, because you've done more of this structuring the thinking pieces and the organizing the thoughts pieces.
Yeah, we can definitely create just some kind of little template. Or if you have a journal, or if you're somebody who journals, like you could just reflect on that, things you've noticed that you've said or thought during the day. Again, a lot of it is just automatic. It's this automatic behavior, this automatic language. So sometimes that's the trickiest part, is just becoming aware of it. But now that you've listened to this podcast, you'll be more likely to pay attention as the day goes on. So
and it really does become something that once you become more aware of it, then you become more able to, in the moments, change what you say and how you say it. We're not completely changing reality, like we're in reality the whole time, but we're changing our outlook towards what we're dealing with and what we're experiencing.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely find it helpful to have like visual reminders. So like I have sticky notes stuck in different places in the house to remind me in certain environments, like things that I want to remember. So an example is on my bathroom mirror, I have a sticky note that says action alleviates anxiety. That was just something that I was working through a project, and it seemed completely overwhelming. And so it was like paralyzing. Like I couldn't do anything. And so someone said that statement, and I thought, oh, that makes sense. Like that feels good to me. Like just do something, just take some kind of action. And then it just kind of alleviates. I mean, the anxiety doesn't go away, but it's more manageable, right? So that's something that I have on my bathroom mirror. It's something I see first thing in the morning and right before I go to bed. So it's just become like a mantra. Like I don't even need that sticky note anymore. But that's an example. You could put something in your kitchen cupboard or something that will remind you.
I love it.
If it's something you want to avoid, or something you want to start doing, or something like that, like be mindful. Like that.
I can give you an example of that just for me in the last few days, because I'll go there and then I'll say the other thing that I wanted to say. But going back to that importance of small steps image, which I think for me, if I were to pick something to put up somewhere, and I actually have it in my classroom, but I need to have it in my personal space to motivate me in my personal life as well. I really like that visual, because what I tend to do is I tend to tell myself, oh, this isn't going to make enough of a difference. And then that steers me away from sticking to something if it doesn't feel like it's going to make enough of a difference. So if I can remember that every small thing I'm doing is a step in the direction I want to go. So I'm doing a 30-day yoga journey, which is just online videos that are free on YouTube. And it provide, if you sign up, you can have a calendar that you can use to follow along. And it's just a commitment of 30 days to doing this yoga. And it starts out kind of meeting you where you are. And then it slowly starts to build and incorporate and help you grow. And it grows with you. And it's exactly what I need. When the first one, I was sort of just like not really doing much per se. Like, not, when I say doing much, I mean, I wasn't sweating and I wasn't like having a hard time catching my breath. And I wasn't, you know, I don't know what else you do when you feel like you've worked out really well, but I thought this is important and meaningful in so many ways, like teaching myself to breathe, teaching myself to slow down, teaching myself to be very mindful about my movements and how my body feels in different positions. All of that piece, it was like I was packing my toolkit for the journey, right? And so I want to remember that even though I'm not sweating my head off, that doesn't, and burning 500 calories, it doesn't mean this isn't important and meaningful. This is for the journey, right? The journey of that ladder. It's a step that I can reach. And so I think that image is going to be one that I'm going to use to keep me doing these little things one at a time.
Yeah. And if you think about each time you don't give in to that idea that, oh, well, it's just a little thing, it's not going to matter, I don't need to do it or whatever. But every time you do those things, again, it's building that trust because you've made that commitment to yourself and you're doing that little thing. So it is important, even if it might not have a huge impact on your health in that moment. Like if you eat that cookie or whatever, if you just follow through on what you've decided for yourself, that's again building that trust, and really that's like of utmost importance, right?
Yeah.
All right. So just a recap of what this podcast was about. So this is about creating that realistic idea of what this health journey will look like. Knowing that, like, what we're going to be teaching you, this is not a fad. This is not a restrictive diet kind of thing. It's a way of living, a way of eating, a way using healthy lifestyle habits to balance your metabolic hormones, to help your metabolism work better, helping you to become more resilient in the face of stress, all of those things, working on mindset, really empowering you to be in the driver's seat, to take control of your thoughts and take control of your journey. And so it's small steps day after day. It's the long game. It's a lifelong thing that we're looking at here. And we just really want to get that point across, that it's just one small step at a time and manageable and not overwhelming. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So in the next podcast, we're going to be talking about the mindset about getting started, and a little bit more about the motivation and about the decision, and what else were we talking about? I feel like we kind of blurred into what we had already decided about episode 3.
I think episode 3, we're going to get more into that we use. And I really liked what you said earlier about the stories we tell ourselves and the story of the past. And so I think we're going to talk more about what is our story and what is the story we want to tell about ourselves. And it's not about creating a story that's not true or not realistic, but it's about creating a story that is empowering and leads us towards action, as opposed to being paralyzed with anxiety. Or paralyzed with, I don't know, overwhelm.
Overwhelm is the theme of the third podcast. Not to be overwhelmed. Yes. And just that's normal when you're first looking at changing things. So we're going to help you through that. All right. Well, thank you, Sarah. And
thank you.
See everybody in the next podcast.
See you next time.
Bye for now.